I will welcome everyone to the CorpusCALL SIG webinar 2023. We're launching a new series called A Conversation With. So the purpose of this webinar series is to really engage in a conversation, as it says in our title, with you guys, whether I know that some of you guys are teachers, researchers, students, or all of the above. And this is really your chance to talk with us and for us to get to know who you are. And just to sort of give you a background of EuroCall. So we are part of the EuroCall. We're one of the SIG groups. So we are CorpusCALL SIG group. And we are a team of myself, Eva, Peter, Rekha, and Jasper. We're all here today to sort of get this webinar series kicked off. So EuroCall is a big sort of a group, and our aim is to bring together everyone who feel passionate about the use of technology in learning and teaching languages and cultures. So you can find us in a lot of different venues and platforms. So we are part of the annual conference, which will be from the 15th of August to the 18th. I believe they've just extended call for abstracts. So you have one more day until tomorrow to submit an abstract if you would like to. And this year, the conference is held in Iceland. So if you are interested, do check that out. We have multiple SIG groups. Again, CorpusCALL is one of many SIG groups in EuroCall. We're also part of the Recall Journal and the online journal EuroCall Review. You can find us in a lot of different venues, again, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. If you are interested in joining EuroCall, do join in this link here, or you can just search EuroCall on Google and you should be able to locate us. That will give you access to a lot of resources and also a chance for you to engage with the different SIG groups. Okay, so we will now get started. So we'll start with a quick introduction of ourselves. So my name is Joyce. I am the chair of CorpusCALL SIG group. And I will open up the floor for the rest of the team to introduce themselves. All right, Eva, do you want to get us started?
Me, for example.
Yes, why not? Hello, everybody. So I'm Eva Schäfer-Lacroix, a German teacher working in France, a professor at Sorbonne University. I'm working at the teacher training department of this university, and then I'm specializing in applied linguistics, educational technology, and inclusive learning. So, Joyce, do you want me to start with the points we had decided to present? Is it now the moment, or
I think we can sort of have everyone introduce themselves and then maybe get into that in a little bit. That's okay.
So I'm not sure if I got it right. Does everybody present themselves now and then we go back to the points, or do we answer all?
Yes, Eva, that's exactly what we do.
Okay, so Rekha, perhaps you can go on.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Rekha Jablonka. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Bath and former chair of the CorpusCALL SIG. At the moment, I'm the liaison officer. And probably something that is really related to the webinar series is that I'm the lead editor of the Routledge Handbook of Corpora and Language Teaching and Learning. And I'm really happy to have you all here and to have the opportunity to share my enthusiasm for using Corpora in language teaching. And Peter, if you would like to continue.
Yep, so I'm Dr. Peter Crosthwaite, Senior Lecturer in Applied Linguistics at the University of Queensland in Australia. I'm the ordinary member of the CorpusCALL SIG. So basically, I just spy on what everybody else is doing, and while not actually having any official role. That's the way I like it. I also, last year and part of the year before that, delivered the International Perspectives on Corpus Technology for Language Learning series, which is very successful with thousands of participants from across the world and with 30 great speakers. And I'm active in researching corpus linguistic applications in the classroom in numerous different countries. So it's great to be part of this in conversation with, and kind of turn the tables a little bit on my usual seminar series setup. So let's carry on.
All right, thank you, Peter. We have Jasper, our secretary. Jasper, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jasper. I'm from Ghent University in Belgium. I'm a PhD student there, and I'm working on intelligent computer-assisted language learning. So combination of natural language processing, corpus linguistics for the goal of learning a foreign language, and I'm working on Spanish in particular. So that's more or less my background.
Thank you, Jasper. And I forgot to say a little bit about my research. I'm a lecturer here at Aston University in Birmingham, UK. And my research interest is largely in language or writing development using Learner Corpora. And yeah, welcome everyone. And again, this is meant to be sort of a conversation with the participants. So everyone is encouraged to share their experience on any of the topics or the questions that we discuss here. And if at any point you do want to ask questions, you can also drop them in the chat and we'll make sure to address them. So shall we get started?
Yeah, so we did have a kind of set structure for questions. I think we posted a kind of Excel form online, but I'm not sure if we actually got any responses from that.
No.
But that's fine. But we come up with some questions for ourselves to kick off the discussion. I think Ava is going to pose the first question.
All right.
Okay, so do you want us to present all our questions, everybody, or the first, everybody of the first, and then the second? And okay, so the first question was, we were asked, what does corpus linguistics mean to you, and what does it mean to be a corpus linguist? So personally, I associate corpus linguistics with freedom, creativity, flexibility. It seems just logical to me to analyze and to teach and learn language with the help of Corpora. That's all.
All right, that's really nice. Anybody else? What does corpus linguistics mean to you?
I can maybe continue. So corpus linguistics for me is a data-driven approach to linguistic analysis. And, you know, in the 1960s, when the first corpora were built, that was a really new approach at that time to looking at language, rather than coming up with your sentences as linguists, looking at, you know, vast amount of data and looking through that kind of lens at language. And I really like the metaphor of a microscope to corpus linguistics, or the corpus linguistic approach to language analysis, because that to me kind of shows that we can, that's a lens, you know, that there is certain things related to it. It highlights that using this lens, you can zoom in on certain language phenomena, for example, concordance lines, where you focus on the usage of particular words.
Yeah, it is a powerful tool, right? And it's a tool for pretty much everyone involved in the use of language in some way, right? For researchers, for students, and for teachers. And it's becoming more and more common in not just in research, but also in teaching as well. And it's really good to see more people engaging with Corpora. Peter, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's a question that I guess you put on two hats. You've got your researcher hat and then your teacher and language learner hat. But then at some point you kind of realize that it's possible to wear more than one hat. And the idea that I could go from language textbooks and the kind of teaching materials I used to work with in language schools early in my career, and then later on in higher education, and some of the questions about language that students would ask that I often didn't have an answer to. You know, which word is supposed to come after this one, or how does this grammatical structure work? And I go into my grammar reference guide and try and flick through 500 pages, try and find the right example. Then, well, after discovering Corpora, you find that you can actually answer those questions in a meaningful and in a way that's supported by empirical evidence from a data set that you control and that you have access to and that you can query in multiple ways. And it was such a, you know, to follow on to what Ava mentioned, it's incredibly liberating to be able to have access to these sources of data and these powerful tools that can really help you understand how language works at the micro level as well as at the macro level, and just help you answer some of those tricky questions that students would come up with, and help them to also answer those questions for themselves in a meaningful way. And coming at this, I was originally a language teacher a long time before I was a researcher, and I guess that's why I was so keen to see how corpus linguistics can help with that. So I'm pleased to see how far the field has come in that area. I think we do have some quite significant challenges at the moment in terms of how that's going to progress, given certain things that are now out there for students to use. But rest assured, there is still a place for Corpora and for DDL, data-driven learning, within second language acquisition, second language learning, disciplinary discourses. There's still a place, and it's our job to make sure that stays a focus of what we try to do.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just to follow up on that, there are a lot of challenges. I think especially in the classroom, right? So we know what the corpus is and what it can do as researchers, right? But oftentimes the teachers, they don't necessarily have the knowledge and the expertise to be able to utilize it, and even for the learners, right? And I think it is sort of a challenge that many people face all over the world. Yeah, I think we have a lot of teachers here. Actually, I was looking at the sign-up list. If anyone wants to share their experience or their challenges of using Corpora or Corpus in their classroom, feel free to just unmute yourself and to share, because this is meant to be a conversation. Does anybody want to share? Okay, we'll just move on to the next question at any time, at any point. If you want to jump in, do feel free. The next question here is, how did you become a researcher in the field of corpus linguistics? So what do you find it to be most interesting and intriguing? Should we start with Ava again?
Okay, just a question. I don't know if Jasper wanted to answer the first question, or is it?
Yeah, Jasper.
Well,
is it your?
I think I don't have to add that much, but for me, it's most about that through Corpora you're able to know a language on a quite deep level, I think, and just to discover a language, even your mother tongue, but especially a foreign language. So getting to know a language and discovering patterns, whatever. For me, that's what corpus linguistics is about in the first place. So yeah, not much to add, but those two elements perhaps.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's really all about usage and how language is used, and you can really see that kind of in the data, right? Absolutely. All right, Ava.
So we come back to the second question. Perhaps I recall it. I was asked how I became a researcher in the field of corpus linguistics and what I find the most intriguing about corpus linguistics. So I first heard from corpus linguistics at the start of my FIDI. That was in 2006, long time ago. And I heard from it thanks to the talks on data-driven learning and corpus use given in France at University of Compiègne by Angela Chambers and Fiona Fraff from University of Limerick. I think most of you know them. And I, at the time, I was a German teacher at a secondary school, and I was fascinated by the idea that the use of corpora with learners could help to overcome the weaknesses of textbooks I had to use with my classes. And I felt that pedagogical corpora are highly relevant in terms of quality and quantity. You have more, you can choose more texts to study, other texts, and what Peter explained, more data and more relevant data to answer questions on grammar or meaning of words, etc. Yes, I think that's all I have to say to this second point. Perhaps if Erika wants to go on.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so actually, the first time I encountered corpora was more as a kind of focusing on lexicology. I visited Oxford University Press, and I was allowed to have a glimpse on how they developed the Oxford Learner Dictionary. And they used, the British National Corpus, and I was just amazed by all that data that you could have on the usage of single words, and that made me, on that path of following corpus linguistics. And then as a language teacher, maybe focusing on English for specific purposes, I found that corpora is a really good tool to identify the language used for in different disciplines. So disciplinary varieties could be really fairly easily identified by using corpus tools. So that was kind of my path.
Excellent. It's all interesting how we all came to be, right? Peter, how did you become a corpus linguist?
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea about corpora. I was doing my MPhil and PhD in applied linguistics at University of Cambridge, and while I was there, I had the opportunity to attend a number of meetings about the English Profile Project, which was a large project that was being conducted by a number of different universities and in collaboration with the people who made the Common European Framework for Reference, the languages, the CFR descriptors, and the English Profile Project was essentially a large-scale learner corpus project that attempted to quantify some of the language features that were underlying text at different CEFR proficiency levels. This was done in collaboration with Cambridge Assessment as well, who were interested in building descriptors for IELTS as well, and looking at some of the grammatical structures at different proficiency levels, and also some of the different vocabulary that would be kind of common to those proficiency levels as well. And I had access to that corpus using Linux and accessing that through a server, which is the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And I managed to have a look at how speakers talked about themselves and others. That's a reference to person. And I looked at that across different proficiency levels during my master's, PhD studies, and eventually wrote that up into a paper that came out 10 years ago now, I think. But it was an interesting time, a kind of big development working with Learner Corpora and as part of a major project like that. And yeah, that was pretty much my introduction.
Excellent. Did you get to work with the Cambridge Learner Corpus at all, or was that something that you did?
Cambridge Learner Corpus, yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, it was at the time it was, but there was a kind of really primitive version of it where the topic, even the topics and stuff was not included in the data, and all you could really
Okay.
see was just like text.
Yeah.
Like there was no real interface at all. So it was really just working with the data and then a lot of kind of hand annotating a ton of stuff. So real kind of busy work that is made so much easier now by the tools that we have available.
What would you say was the most difficult part of building that corpus?
Well, I'm not sure because I didn't build it. I mean, they got it built by taking in submissions that were sent into Cambridge Assessment. So they built it, and then they had obviously lots of meetings about how to make it representative and how to make sure that it was balanced across the different proficiency levels, and then also the kind of learners and things like that as well. So just an interesting, I was just like a fly on the wall as part of the project, and it's just a really interesting time, really motivated me to want to take it further.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I was asking because I worked with the Cambridge Learning Corpus for my PhD, and that was a big part of the project. And it's just so interesting. For those of you who don't to the corpus, I think anyone can apply for it now, right? There's like a form that you'll have to fill out, but as a researcher, anyone is able to request full access to the corpus. I believe it's 55 million words. And they are continuing to build it. I only worked with a small subsection of it, so I pulled out the L1 Korean speaker portion of the entire corpus, which was still like 1 million words. So yeah, it was really good. I guess I'll just kind of keep the conversation going while I'm at it. How did I get into corpus linguistics? I think for me, the starting point was during my master's. I actually did my MA in Korea. And at that time, I was also a language teacher. So that's sort of what got me to pursue a degree in English education. And what was really intriguing about this one particular course on corpus linguistics is how systematic the whole kind of the field is. And, you know, when we talk about language education and English learning, we talk a lot about individual differences and how subjective it is for every individual, which is true. And I completely agree with it. But I think also at the same time, I wanted to see kind of it from a holistic perspective and also from a micro perspective in like a systematic sort of a manner. And that's what sort of got me into corpus linguistics, which got me to also do my PhD here in the UK. I worked with CorpusCALL. We're at University of Cambridge at that time, and I got to work with the Cambridge Learning Corpus. You can, I think everyone has access to it through Sketch Engine as well. If you have access to that, you can get like a small sample version of it, which is also really interesting. So if that is something that you are looking into, then you can definitely look into that. Jasper, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, for me, what brought me to corpus linguistics was programming, actually, because I took a postgraduate on computer assisted language mediation, and there I was introduced to Python, and part of that was analyzing great quantities of text through the programming language, and then I could see the power of analyzing great quantities of data and extracting the most relevant parts out of it, and then also that kind of empirical approach. So that was what brought me to Corpora. As far as this question is concerned.
Yeah, excellent. Oh yes. Elif, did you want to add anything here?
Hello.
Hi.
Nice greetings from Turkey.
Oh, nice.
Joyce and everybody. Well, I feel really a little reluctant to talk with all of you, very experienced researchers, because I'm just a novice student, PhD student right now.
That's right. But Elif, this is exactly why we organized this seminar series because we're tired actually of talking about ourselves. And we want people like you to join in.
And dear Peter, I was all with you in last year's seminar series at Queensland University. I remember all of them. And
thanks so much.
Thank you for this chance also to talk with you. If I tell you my story of getting interested in corpus linguistics and how to connect it to language teaching, it goes back to my MA studies again. I was working on vocabulary learning strategies, and all that literature review I did was about, how GSL by Michael West was produced, and all those studies that was based on GSL and frequency, those frequency lists, ranges, and so on. And it just captivated me how they managed all those, let's say, big corpus of words, and they chose the words to put in dictionaries and the words to use, define those words. And then collocations, colligations, it all, how to say that? It was amazing to get into that kind of a track. And then when I began my PhD, I got that corpus linguistics and language teaching and also discourse analysis classes. While I was studying those courses, I did an assignment for corpus linguistics course, and I studied the GIG corpus, which was compiled by Dorrant and Branchley, grossing grammar corpus. My assignment was found publishable by my course professor, and then it finally found its place in an international journal, and I'm really proud of that. It is my one and only production, and I would like to walk in all your footsteps. I would like to do something more, but I must say that I'm just a beginner following in your footsteps. Thank you.
Thanks, Ale.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. We all started small.
Yeah, that's true.
Anybody else like to tell us about their experiences first discovery?
I think Shui has.
Shuya, did you want to share something?
Let's hear it.
Thanks, Joyce. And thank you all so much for holding this enlightening discussion. I just have a very quick question. So my question is, if we just use corpus as data and analyze the linguistic patterns within the corpus, instead of using corpus as tools or materials to teach, in that way, can we identify ourselves as corpus linguists?
Ooh.
That's
Thank
a
you.
good question. I like
Yeah.
I'm stealing.
Yeah, why not?
I'm stealing. Very good. Anybody want to provide an answer to this great question?
Yeah. So what is
From
a
the
corpus
panel.
linguist? Who can call themselves a corpus linguist, right?
Ava, Reka, Joyce?
That's really interesting, because I wanted to say yes, if you do this, you are a corpus linguist. But if we use a non-land dictionary, are we lexicographers? So it's not so easy to answer this question. Perhaps we are corpus linguists if it's a sort of current, if we always think in this way, if it's really in a background of our thinking.
Yeah, I've got a good answer to this, in that this takes me back to my time at University of Hong Kong as well. I was working under Professor Ken Hyland, who has published, multiple corpus studies on academic English. He's one of the world's most renowned professors in academic English, one of the most cited worldwide, and he often would get invited to kind of keynote talks where talking about using corpora and being corpus linguist, and he always told me that he never saw himself as a corpus linguist, that he just used corpora to do his research. And that really kind of stuck with me as well, in that I think if you look at the field of researchers, there are people who very much call themselves corpus linguists. And then there are people who use corpora to do the things that they need to do, whether that's for teaching or learning or whatever. And I think it's difficult to sometimes classify what makes a corpus linguist or not, I think. I tend to see corpus linguists as people who spend hours trying to work out which regression model to use on their data, or write papers about which kind of random forests analysis will help you get that extra 1% kind of accuracy in the model that you have. But I don't see it as restricted in that way. It's open to everyone, and it's in answer to your question, I'm of the opinion that if you're using corpora for the purposes of learning about language and discovering new patterns, and then if that's to me, that makes you a corpus linguist, in my opinion. I try not to get too hung up on whether that makes you like a bona fide researcher or with certain credentials and things like that, but I think it's open to everyone, and certainly I believe that in doing the things that you mentioned, that to me makes you a corpus linguist.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of a term that people use to identify themselves rather than to say, oh, you are a corpus linguist and you're not because XYZ, right? It's more of something that people use to sort of form their own identity.
I don't see I don't see myself necessarily as a corpus linguist, but I published a ton of corpus studies. So how does that work?
Yeah, also really interesting.
Thank you so much for your answers.
Yeah.
And maybe just to add, I think even if we look at journals, earlier we had International Journal of Corpus Linguistics, but now a couple of years ago, we've got the Applied Corpus Linguistics Journal. And I think that also shows that it is legitimate to use corpora for certain purposes without being like, let's say, a core corpus linguist or focusing on corpus linguistics only in your research. Maybe the distinction I might want to make is, just like as with pure linguistics and applied linguistics, we could make corpus linguists pure would focus on analyzing the language, whereas kind of applied corpus linguists would look into how what you find in your corpus and how you can apply that in teaching or in other fields.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a very subjective term, right? It's not necessarily anything that would pinpoint to someone being a corpus linguist as opposed to someone who's not. There is a question. Is corpus linguistics practitioner user the same as a corpus linguist then?
I mean, like, I think that goes back to what Rekha just said about applied versus kind of core corpus linguists, in that I think it's perfectly acceptable to call yourself a practitioner and a corpus linguist in the same sentence, but then for some people, they may see that as something different. Terminology is tricky, but I think, in 2023, life's too short to worry about the specific term, even if other people do. So
yeah, there's that also thing with, is corpus linguistics a theory or method, right? So it kind of sort of ties into that as well.
Let's not
get into that. It's for another day.
That's not going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to come in on the previous question about either what makes corpus linguist, or where you first got introduced to corpus linguistic? Hui-sun, I think you just put your hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Hi, I'm very new to corpus linguistics. I'm a lecturer at Cardiff University, and my background is in second language acquisition and individual differences. I very recently start to read more about corpus linguistics and data-driven learning. And I'm very interested in this because so most of my the studies I've done is on implicit, explicit learning. And I think corpus studies can provide a very good, say, venue for this to explore the learning processes and also regarding learning strategies as well, learning experience as well. Yeah, but I guess that's why firstly I got interested in corpus linguistics. I'm wondering, because you mentioned, I'm not sure if this is the topic you want to talk about, but you mentioned that there are several challenges in corpus linguistics right now regarding how to turn corpus data to teaching materials or to use corpus data in classrooms. I wonder if you want to talk about those challenges.
Sure. Maybe I'll start. I think there's turning corpus data into materials has been going on for decades. I don't necessarily see that as a challenge. I think the challenge that was raised, the two challenges that I see at the moment that was raised before was about bringing corpus linguistics into the mainstream, and in terms of teacher training. There's so many studies now on using corpora for language teacher education courses, and they all seem fairly positive, but then you find that there's no follow-up, or if there is follow-up, you'll see that very few of the teachers are still using corpora following the training. So this is a major issue. And there are a number of reasons for that, whether that's the complexity of the tools, incorrect data, like inappropriate data that they've been asked to use. As a regular reviewer of papers on this topic, I often reject a number of papers just because you think, well, yes, you got these results, but how did you get them? And really, it's no surprise that the teachers are not taking to it because of the different ways that the training has been done. So lots of different issues there, and that kind of acceptance of corpus linguistics as a potential teaching method in terms of not so much in materials development and creation, but in that hands-on DDL, that kind of learner-led, student-led in-class use of language corpora. It's still really difficult to bring teachers on board in a meaningful way. And then the other challenge that the thing that shall not be mentioned is the advancing generative AI that's just come out, obviously, with things like ChatGPT, and everybody's on board, or the teachers and learners alike, with that technology. So then what is that going to do for DDL going forward? And I see that as a wonderful opportunity to actually get millions of people who wouldn't ordinarily do any kind of DDL, but to actually get them to use that interface and that corpus to do DDL for the first time. And I'm seeing that as a wonderful opportunity. So I guess those are two challenges that I can think of right now, and possible solutions for those. We've just seen in 2023 alone, I think, and late 2022, a ton of studies out there now on teachers' corpus literacy and how to do that, how to train that. I've got a project myself going on in Vietnam right now about that topic. So I expect to see a lot on corpus literacy, I think, this year, as was one of the hot topics that's going to be out there in the field.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I kind of agree with the corpus literacy. Teachers having the skills to use corpora is a great challenge. And even though we see corpus linguistics kind of spreading to all aspects of linguistics and language teaching, as you're saying, Huisun, in second language acquisition is coming there. And I think a new direction will be relating second language acquisition and learning theory to, for example, using learner corpora and identifying, what we find in terms of patterns there. But still, when each year when I teach a little bit of corpus-based language teaching, I see that it's still the majority of the students on an MA-TESOL program. They might have heard about corpora, but they don't really know what corpora are and what they could be used for in language teaching. So that's a big challenge. But as Peter was saying, with the new developments of AI, that might change, and then maybe new challenges and opportunities will come for corpus-based language teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Elif, did you have something to add to that?
I just want to say that in my country, Turkey, there are some national and local seminars with certificates which teaches how to use corpora and corpus tools, actually, both for undergraduates and graduates. However, the people who make use of those seminars are limited in number. I must say that those corpus tools are they are introduced in international seminars, sometimes national seminars, and sometimes with certificate programs, but still it is not integrated into undergraduate programs in my country yet, in teacher pre-service training yet. It's not fully integrated. Only if a university has faculty members who are very well equipped with corpus technology, corpus literacy, then they want to open up a way for their students to learn about that. But it's really, really too limited, I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's definitely spreading, right? It's growing. So yeah, Rekha.
Maybe just to add the other side, the learner's side, I do feel that, from the learner's perspective, using DDL, using corpora is a different approach to language learning itself. Normally you would have activities in a textbook, short conversations or texts that you read, and looking at so many examples and kind of discovering patterns and rules for yourself. That's a different approach from the learner's perspective as well. So that might also be a challenge, because we need to educate learners at the same time as we are kind of educating teachers as well. Yeah,
there are definitely
challenges. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think something that we're going to see is this maybe this year now is a kind of divorce in a way, in terms of DDL as an approach and theory of learning and corpora. So actually starting to separate DDL from corpora and corpus tools, and for example, using things like generative AI, ChatGPT, and things like that to do DDL. So if I go in and I ask, if I try to do like a regular expression in, say, a tool like Anconc or Langsbox or something, I'm basically putting in like a word and then part of speech tag and this and that, and it's like a code, it's like a programming language, right? Some of it is programming language, corpus query language. Now I can go to ChatGPT and said, give me 20 concordances with this construction. Literally just using English, give me 20 concordances using according to, with a noun complement following that, bang, straight away gives them to me, right? So that this is that, I guess the point is that what has typically held back DDL and and language learning under that kind of approach has been the complexity of the tools and the complexity of the queries that you need to make. They're not user-friendly, and they never have been, to be honest. And the sooner that maybe we can start to separate what we know that works from the second language learning point of view, and all of the recent theoretical work in that space that's been done by people like Anne O'Keefe, for example, you can still do DDL really well. But you just might not be using traditional corpus tools to do it.
So this would be the separation between corpus linguists and corpus users, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there's another
A sharper
good way to
division.
say it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see. Sorry, can I?
No, go ahead, Rekha. Yeah.
Just to, I totally agree with what Peter is saying, and user friendliness of tools was a great issue. And just to think about Sketch Engine, how they developed their platform, there was a big change. Before it was less user friendly, and in the last couple of years it's a lot more user friendly. And for example, for language teaching, I would recommend that more than other tools, because that's easier to use and quicker and more intuitive for users to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, something interesting that Peter mentioned about ChatGPT. At the heart of corpus linguistics and corpora in general is authentic language, right? And how authentic is ChatGPT, and is that considered authentic language? Because it is generated by AI and computer. And so what does that mean in corpus
So
linguistics?
we start getting into whole questions then about the fact that GPT is a black box. And we have a lot of presentations, even in my own series, about the importance of open science and open data. And there's still very much a place for corpora, in terms that we know what those texts are, we know where those texts came from, we know the domain in which they were extracted, and there's still a place for corpus tools in the classroom for analyzing those specific texts. So certainly for disciplinary or very, very specific purposes, GPT is not going to do it for you. You're going to still need to use corpora and corpus tools and still go into it on the basis that you're building principled corpora and the domain from which they're taken, you've got some idea about their representativeness. And those are the real strengths of the corpus-based approach to research and the corpus-based approach to teaching. But in terms of just your general average language learner learning general English language or another language, you may not need to do and conc with the BNC corpus anymore, right?
Pretty soon the students are going to be using, they are probably already using GPT to do their assignments. And I read this somewhere.
I know I am.
Yeah. And I read this some other day that Cambridge and Oxford have actually banned students from using GPT. I don't know how they can control that, to be honest.
I thought they were smart at Cambridge and Oxford, right? Aren't they supposed to be smart there? How are they going to ban it?
Yeah, exactly. How do you catch students who use GPT, right? It's pretty tough. But
Joyce, I see the time is moving on. So do we want to get on to the last question?
Yeah, let's do that. So the last question here is, where do you see corpus linguistics in 20 years? So technology, all of that is just conquering, overpowering the world. Where do we see, the field in 20 years' time? Does anyone want to get us started?
Perhaps not me, because I think you said things, I changed my mind when I see what I decided to say. Perhaps anybody else?
You'll still be here in 20 years, Ava, okay? So don't worry about
it. Not sure, not sure.
Of course you will. Well, my hope is that they become more widely used, not just in research, but among language teachers and learners. And they are becoming more user-friendly. Like Rekha said, Sketch Engine has become a lot more user-friendly. So in that sense, my hope is that, you know, the field and just the use of corpora does become a bit more mainstream. And I think we are already kind of approaching to that stage where it is more and more teachers are starting to use, and also learners as well. So that's kind of like my hope.
That was roughly what I wanted to say. So thank you very much, Joyce. But perhaps to add something, I'm working with German mainly or French, and it's not the same situation than with English. I'm always jealous when I see what is already happening in English, and we are a bit behind. I really dream of textbooks which use corpus data, and I hope that in German that will come, because for you it's a bit normal. There are already such products, and I think there's a
lot of money behind it. I mean, the major publishers have been using corpora for decades, but that's because that, you know, they see the financial value in it.
Yes. The market is not so big for other languages than German, than English. But yes, I hope that it will be a normal competence to use such tools, but perhaps it will, as Peter explained, not be the corpus tools we know, but other sort of tools who build on corpus data, who use corpus data, like DeepL also, or other tools.
Just to answer this question, I would probably make a distinction of where we would see corpus linguistics, or where we would see corpus-based language teaching, which is probably more the focus of CorpusCALL. And when I think about this user-friendliness of tools, that will, I'm sure, happen. And the other thing, what I'm hoping is, I'm a great advocate of, you know, autonomous use of corpora. So I see DDL and corpus consultation as mainly something that learners should do in their own time, and language teachers would encourage them and maybe give the skills to use that. But at the end of the day, it would be great to see more and more language learners using corpus tools, more user-friendly ones, in their own time to develop their proficiencies in any language.
Anyone from the audience? Okay,
I'm just wondering if there's a possibility to bring say a gamification kind of thing into corpus linguistics. That's also like promote learner engagement and so on. And I think with that large amount of data from the corpora, I mean it's a good resource, but how to combine those two, and maybe one step before that, maybe task-based linguistics or language learning as well. I don't know what's the possibilities out there, but I think that might be a direction for the future.
Yeah, it's a really good observation. There's clearly a business model for it. I mean, if you look at Duolingo, for example, that's essentially how they made their empire for vocabulary learning, I guess, in terms of just a game. But then if you combine that game with more authentic passages instead of the ones that Duolingo give you for more intermediate or advanced learners. So there's a multi-million-dollar idea you can take and get started tomorrow, I guess. I'm too busy to do it myself, so I'll let you do it. But that's a potential strategy for sure. And it just takes somebody to set it up. I don't know why nobody's done it yet, and that maybe they have, but we just haven't heard about it.
If you give me a small slot, so I can say what I wanted to say. There is in France, there's a researcher, Karen Faure, and who worked at Sorbonne University, and now she's at Nancy. And she does realizes such sort of things with gaming combined with tagging. So I think it goes a bit in this direction, that you invite gamers to annotate data. I don't know how she manages to make a game of it, but it exists. So I think it could be interesting to read what she found out with this game, and then adapt it to more language awareness tasks or things like this.
Yeah.
Could you put one reference or the name in the chat?
The name, I can put it right now, and I can look for references also.
Thank you.
And Liv, I did see your hand. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, the question was, I guess, the state of corpus linguistics in 20 years' time. Recently, I've been in a MOOC where they talked about a corpus of signed languages. And so relating it to what Eva, Professor Lacroix said, less represented languages, I think, will be studied in corpus linguistics more in the next 20 years. That's what I think.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
could be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Reka?
Yeah, just one more thing to reply to Hui. In our handbook, Fanny Meunier, I will put it into the chat. She has got a chapter on revamping DDL, and she does touch upon gamification and using video games as kind of DDL approach. So you might want to read that chapter as a starter.
Yeah, Fanny has mentioned that on numerous occasions, and also using other tools and resources that are not corpora, not corpus tools, traditional corpus tools, but that still require elements of DDL in doing them. So websites like Play Phrase Me, or there are a couple of others that I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's like where you go in and you have to still deal with lots of language data in order to use those tools, and you can build games and activities around those. So definitely check out her work. She's written quite a lot on that.
Absolutely. All right.
Sorry, can I have the name in the chat, please?
I added it in the chat.
The name is there, Fanny Meunier.
Yeah, she'll actually be here in 2 weeks as part
She's
of
on the next one.
Yeah, she's on the next one.
The next seminar we have.
Can ask her a lot of questions
fact,
about that.
maybe it's time to advertise that now, Joyce, because we're on the hour.
Yeah, so we've got a poster for that coming up just after today. So
we don't actually have the poster ready yet. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, because we're still getting the
we have got the poster with all the webinars.
Yeah. Do you want to show that now, Joyce, just to remind people what's coming next?
What's the next?
Yes, so let me open that up. Just give me 1 minute.
That'll just be a minute. But I guess we're on the hour, so we might have to wrap up soon. But I think it's been a really interesting experience, and so many of these seminars are very much one way, and that's fine for what they are. That kind of format is very useful, but I find that this kind of format is much more interesting, and it takes that participation as well to get going. I hope that everybody listening has heard something useful, or maybe inspired them to think about some of the things that we've been talking about in this seminar, whatever that may be, whether that's for language teaching, whether that's corpus linguistics more generally. Maybe there's a particular project that you're working on that you might have got an idea for, maybe a particular corpus or corpus tool you might want to know more about. That's what the CorpusCALL SIG does. We are here to promote what we do and to promote that to the world. And basically, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to us and for having this conversation. And if there's sufficient demand and questions, maybe you can consider increasing the length of the next session. It feels like that we had so much more to talk about than we could possibly fit into an hour. And as you can see there, Joyce, would you like to introduce the next seminar series?
Yeah, so
the next seminar
Fanny,
in the series.
Yeah, so Fanny will be on the 19th of April, actually. So the next series is on the 22nd of March, 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. We'll have Alex Bolton, Anna, Franca Garcia, Henry Tyne, and Maggie Charles bring new sets of questions from new perspectives. So you're more than welcome to join us for that, as well as the other ones forthcoming in April. We have 2 more, one on the 3rd and the other one on the 19th of April. So just if you've already registered for one of them, you will have gotten a link for the Zoom. It's just the same link. So you don't have to re-register. Again, certificates provided for anyone who wishes to get one.
I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. You've got 4 of the best there who are going to talk about their work. And again, we may post the link to ask questions, like pre-registered questions. So if you do have a question that you would like to ask the panel, you can send that to us in advance, or you can save it up and give it there during the session. But either way, we'd be grateful for your support, and I'm sure that you're all going to find it of great interest.
All right, we're just out of time. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to our team for, again, being part of this webinar series. I hope to see you guys again in a couple weeks. Have a good day, morning, night, evening, wherever you are. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.